Welcome to the Crystal Coach Show with me, your host, Anahata, helping you live every day with clarity, guidance, and practical wisdom. Are you feeling overwhelmed, anxious, maybe disconnected? Do you ever feel like you don't know how to live a life of peace and joy? I am Anahata Roach, the Crystal Coach, and during this show, we channel divine wisdom through stories of service, spirituality, and stones for self-care. The Crystal Coach Show leaves you with a feeling of connection and the clarity it takes towards becoming the best version of yourself as you hear from thought leaders and many others to help you ignite the crystalline nature of who you really are. Stay tuned. The Crystal Coach Show starts now. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Crystal Coach Show. I'm your host, Anahata Roach, and I am the Crystal Coach. It's beginning, I'm time stamping this, but it's the beginning of fall here in the Midwest where I live in the United States. And the air is crisp and it's time to get out sweaters and long sleeves. And I must confess that it's one of my favorite seasons of the year. Spring and fall, I think, are my most favorite seasons. Not only because of the cooler weather, but also because of what they represent. Spring being this time of rebirth, and fall this time of letting go and allowing, and this transition into a resting place, a place of dormancy, a place of the void, if you will, like going into the void of just being in a place where you can plan, you can dream, you can do all kinds of things that otherwise you're too busy to do, right? Sometimes the weather forces us to do that in the wintertime, but the fall is this beautiful, colorful way of nature saying, it's time to release, it's time to let go. But what a gorgeous way to do it, right? In this episode, I want to talk to you about I call it shoulding. Don't should on yourself. But how many times a day, really, do you berate yourself with words of criticism? Do the words should have, would have, could have top the list of the most popular phrases you hear inside your head? Why are we so mean to ourselves? Here we are doing the best we possibly can in any kind of given situation, and we're being subjected to this constant armchair quarterback telling us how we got it wrong. Hey, listen, if this resonates with you, you're in for a treat, because the topic of today's show may just help you provide strategies for dealing with that awful, negative Neal or Nancy that's a voice in your head. As always, there will be suggestions for crystals and stones to work with to support a more positive self-image and self-talk. So I wanted to talk about some experiences that have helped me to turn down the volume of that negative monologue and develop a stronger, more affirming voice to tune into. I'm going to tell you a story about what, for the longest time, I considered my most horrific corporate embarrassing moment. The time when I wished that the floor would open up and I could just be swallowed up. And it stayed with me for such a long time. I call it my biggest fail. So the point of all this, the biggest fail, and I'm going to tell you the story, but the point I want to get to is that if you stop arguing with that inner critic, that's the first step. Okay, remember that. All right, so here I was, the director of internal communication for a Fortune 500 company, working in the corporate headquarters, in charge of a plethora of responsibilities. But as many other women can relate to, who've had, higher positions, you don't really get the same kind of support staff that you might need. I had a half-time admin, and I also had the use of the marketing department's AV tech person. And some of my job, a big portion of my job revolved around creating events and presentations for the C-suite, the CEO, the EVPs, the CFO, all that. And it was just me and my PowerPoint, on my computer. And I had to do a big event in which all of the leaders from across the world, this is a multinational company, came into our corporate headquarters, and I was in charge of this big day, this leadership day in which all these field people, the top brass from the field would come in and get some information and presentations on various things that the company was doing. I also was in charge of finding a keynote speaker and the event venue, and on and on and on, all the details. I say this because in my work to prep all of the presentations, the CFO, excuse me, the CEO, the two EVPs of the different business units, and other folks that were making presentations that day, I too was making a presentation. And it was very exciting because I had been given permission to do a communications management pilot in a new sales area, sales territory. And it had started to work and it was going great. And I was really excited to give this presentation, but I had to make sure that all these other presentations were done too, right? So I worked on mine last, of course. And I handed the AV tech person the day of the presentation my, thumb drive with my presentation on it. And I had already emailed an earlier version of that presentation to kind of be a placeholder, but I don't think I communicated that very well. So anyway, long story short, I'm in the middle of my presentation, and not even in the middle. I've barely started my presentation, and the slides don't match with the note pages that I've handed out to everybody in the room. It was like 150 people in this room. And, I noticed, and I was like, I stopped and I clicked back and it wasn't there. And I clicked forward and it wasn't there, the slide I was looking for. And so I had to stop a minute and ask the AV person about what was going on. And, it snowballed. My embarrassment, my shame, my guilt, my horror at what was dissolving in front of me, an opportunity to really make a difference in this company. I just, the future me, if the future me could come to that past me and talk to her about how to handle it, we'd have all kinds of good information for her. But at that point in my career, I was still, this was new. Making presentations was new to me. And so, yes, I was nervous. I mean, who isn't making a presentation, especially in front of all the top brass, right? But I just didn't know how to cope. And so I finally just said, I'm sorry. I was so busy making other presentations, I forgot to really do mine well. So we're going to go on to the next speaker. And I left it at that, and it just broke my heart. I wanted the whole world. I mean, I just wanted the floor to open up and take me. I lived with that for years afterwards. Every time it would come up, I just, my stomach would turn. I'd feel the same shame. I'd feel the same horror that, this was imploding on me. And I just, all my dreams kind of crashing onto the floor, right? About what I could do in this company and where I could go. Um, Honestly, I had so many of the people come up to me afterwards and say, you know, I really wanted to hear that. I think it would be a good idea. I'm sorry you had your AV issues, but just offering sympathy to me. And it was so sweet. But what did I focus on? I focused on the after, the review of all of the speakers. Of course, I was in charge of that survey, right? And so I saw all the answers to all the speakers. There was one person out of all of those people that wrote on my survey, do not let Anna Roach present again, ever. That's what I heard. That's what I saw. That's what I took in. It wasn't that all of these other people came up to me with sympathy and, it was just like, are you kidding me? That's all I focused on. That's all I focused on. So what happened was that over time, and as I started to heal myself, I realized that the key here is to not have an emotion attached to that memory. If it's a bad memory, you want to filter out that emotion. You want to take it away so that you can look at that memory from a neutral place. Okay? I'm sharing this with because you can only do so much. And then you really have to allow yourself the grace to fail. The inner negatives will continuously berate you as long as you're holding on to those emotions like shame and regret and even anger. If you've got an emotional attachment to that memory that's triggering that inner armchair quarterback telling you shoulda, woulda, coulda, then it's really you're just going to be in this cycle where it just stays with you for the rest of your life. And I know you don't want that any more than I wanted to have that memory feeling that way every time it came up. And God knows I tried to forget it, but no. The inner critic's not going to let you do that, right? So, if you forgive your past self, just forgive. She did the best she could at the time, right? That's the best she could at the time. But hey, listen, you're never going to let that ever happen again, right? It's time to move on. You'll get another chance to redeem yourself at some point, and the hard lesson will be worth it. We're going to take a quick break. And when I come back, I'm going to talk about how you talk to yourself and a client's experiences with that. We'll be right back. Hello again, and welcome back to the Crystal Coach Show with me, Anahata, your host. We're talking about the should haves and the would haves and the could haves and the times that we fail and how the inner armchair quarterback wants to beat us up with what we could have done or should have done. And I just shared with you one of the biggest fails of my life in corporate. And now that I'm out on my own, I've discovered that I really like to make presentations. I really like to speak to groups of people. And I have this podcast now, and I'm making a presentation every other week, and it's fun and enjoyable. And I think I'm pretty good at it. So don't beat yourself up. Just know that it's a lesson that you need to take with you because you needed something from that experience to learn and to not repeat, right? So I'd now like to talk about really how we are talking to ourselves. We've got this inner armchair critic, but we're also piling on with the way we talk to ourselves. I mean, you probably sometimes, I know I catch myself saying negative things to myself. And I'm like, oh, no, that's not what I meant. Because, the body takes it on. I don't know if you're ever aware of this experiment that this Japanese scientist did, Dr. Emoto, with water. I think it was back in the 90s, maybe. He put different labels on water, like love or hate or anger, and had this vibration of that word put into that. I mean, we're mostly water, right? Put into that beaker, and then the water was frozen and cut into these slices so that you could look at them under a microscope. And the way in which the molecules were assembled was amazing. I mean, the hatred was all disfigured and ugly, and the love was this beautiful configuration of molecules. So if you speak to yourself negatively, the water molecules in your body respond to that, and they distort. But if you speak kindly or with love, they blossom. Dr. Emoto, go look it up, Emoto. It's a famous scientific study. It's just really the most, like, the coolest thing ever. But if you just really translate to, like, our bodies are water, so mostly water, right? So talk nicely to it. Just become aware of how you're talking to yourself. You're just all the time, oh geez, I'm so stupid, I'm so dumb, I'm not good at that, I can't keep up, I don't know. Oh my goodness, cursing yourself. That's the worst thing, because you've just set up a vibrational pattern into the information field in your body that's not very good. I had a client that was an expert in talking negatively to herself. And I mean, every other word was negative about herself. And I was like, have you ever started listening to how you talk about yourself? No. Maybe, and she felt like she was stuck. She was stuck in so many ways, right? But that's why, she came to me, because she wanted me to help her get unstuck. But one of the things that we worked on was just how she spoke to herself. If you say to yourself all the time, oh God, I hate myself, what's that happening in your body? What's going on? You're not allowing your cells to flourish. You're denying, really critical energy to your being, to your physical vessel. We worked with her to clear out all of these emotional programs that were running in the background about her worthlessness, about her disgust around herself. I mean, there was a lot of trauma in her childhood, emotional and sexual. So you get to be an adult through trial and error. I mean, it happens, your body kind of grows up, right? But if you've got issues that are stuck in the past, like in your childhood, that's still running in the background. And you might have had a little more life experience to view it from, but it's still there. So learning to listen to yourself and not allow yourself to say mean things to yourself, even if you're just talking to yourself and not saying it in front of anybody else. Or if you're looking in the mirror and you're going, way to go, cuss word. I mean, really, that's even you're reflecting your reflection. So it's a double whammy, right? So the moral of the story is, for the client anyway, thank goodness, we were able to clear out those horrible barriers and limiting beliefs that kept her in this kind of closed loop of negativity, so that she could actually look around and go, oh my God, there's a whole nother universe out here. It was a beautiful thing. It's truly, truly a beautiful thing. So here's some takeaways. Clear out the verbally abusive ancestral patterns of behavior that you're set in childhood. I got another story for you. Speaking of those ancestral abusive patterns, I loved my father dearly and he loved me, but he had been emotionally abused as a child. And so therefore he was repeating the patterns with me. And he had a favorite saying when he got mad at us, which was often, "You're not worth killing." Imagine saying that to a small child. You're not worth killing. Fortunately for me, I didn't believe him. But there were times I think that my other two sisters did. So when you've got these kind of ancestral patterns that you've grown up with, that blocks your self-esteem, your self-worth, and your own ability to recognize your own achievements. So takeaway is positive self-talk works. If you resist it, push through it and do it anyway until your habit changes. How to transform should to become. My goodness. The constant revisiting of the past is unproductive. Listen, you need to find the pony in the pile and move on. Where are the gold nuggets that you can keep from the experience? Great, keep them. These are things that you've learned and you don't want to repeat. These are gold nuggets. You can discard the rest. You don't have to relive the whole thing over and over and over and over again, feeling the same way every time. Positive self-talk. If you can switch your self-assessment tenses, that's a lot. If you can switch your self-assessment tenses from the coulda, woulda, shoulda past tense to the future oriented, then should is past and become is future. Okay, so how do you do that, Anahata? All right, how about we say, I now have more opportunity to learn and grow my skills. Or I can become a recognized expert. Or I will become a requested speaker. It's just an example. But if we have a way that we can transmute the should haves, would haves, and could haves into this more future oriented, yes, I've learned this and now I have this opportunity to grow from it. Or yes, I've learned this and now that I can take that and parlay it into a future that is what I wanted, not what I experienced. The past is over, so we can just leave it be. I have some mineral recommendations for quieting the critic, and I'll share them with you as soon as we come back from break. It's a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Crystal Coach Show with me, your host, Anahata. I've spent the last few minutes talking about ways that you can overcome the negative Nancys in your head and the armchair quarterback critics and the self-talk that is awful, that is not in your highest and best good. But as usual, I always wrap up my talks with mineral or crystal and stone, recommendations that you can use to help you and support you if you're working on conquering the shame and self-doubt and the self-worth issues, or talking self-positive talk, right? There's all kinds of minerals those are kind of like my go-to stones, and I use them a lot when I'm making recommendations. But today I pulled out my treasure chest of my collection, and I said, there are other stones out there that I can tell folks about that could very well be just the right stone for you. The first one I want to talk about is called astrophyllite. P-H-Y-L-I-T-T-E, astrophyllite. It's a dark colored stone with kind of a chatoyance of blue. So it's got some flash of color in it, blue and pyrite looking gold. It's a super high vibe storm element in my realm, which is about change and transformation. But it really does help to bring the shadow aspects of the self to the conscious awareness. And that's so that that self-acceptance and self-forgiveness can be achieved. It can give hope to those who fear the judgment of others, and helps you face your darkest fears and reclaim your full power. So, as I say, astrophyllite's a pretty cool stone. It's a pretty cool mineral. But I don't recommend it all the time because it has a specific purpose, It's not I can use this on a lot of different occasions kind of a thing. It's a powerful vibration, and one that you use specifically for things like what we were just talking about. Another stone is called eudialyte, E-U-D-I-A-L-Y-T-E. Now, other people might say, well, that's not the way I say it. Okay, it's fine. You say it your way, I'll say it my tomato. But eudialyte is a kind of a combination of, it's a dark garnet red with green and black. And, this is a tumbled stone, so it's very difficult to see all the colors in it. But it's a very powerful little nugget that I've got in my hand. It really works to quiet that self-doubt and promote self-love. It's a stone that I don't use all the time, but when it came up as I was looking for stones for this, it just was like, oh yeah, this is a good one, because that self-doubt, this is one of those stones that you could put in your pocket, and anytime that armchair quarterback wants to doubt what you're doing, then you can say, well, I got my eudialyte, and I don't need your thought. Thank you. By the way, before I go on, as an addendum to what we were talking about before break, I was trying to say a word, and it didn't come out right. And I wanted to offer this because I said it after when we went to break. I said it to my producer, but when I say that to myself, it's really funny. I learned this from um, a, a, a really super a super coach. It's Thrive Academy is the name of the group that I'm a lifetime member of, and I love these two people that are associated with it. They founded it, a husband and wife team, Charlotte Jacobs and Jesse Corin. And Jesse on stage always, whenever he would make a mistake or whatever, he would just go, "I'm so sexy." And I've started doing that for myself inside my head, right? And so instead of berating yourself like, "Oh God, you're so stupid." No, I'm so sexy. It's okay to be sexy anytime you mess up. Okay. So go be sexy. Now, the next stone I want to talk to you about is mahogany obsidian. There are so many types of obsidian that it's just kind of blows my mind because obsidian is volcanic rock. Okay. And so it forms, it's a glass-like substance that forms when, volcanoes erupt. But there's so many ways that it appears. And this is called mahogany obsidian. Now you can see the shininess of the glass. If you're watching today, you can see on the video part that the side of this slab is very shiny because that's the glass. The obsidian, the mahogany obsidian has an inclusion that makes it look like a piece of mahogany. It's a kind of a brownish inclusion in it. This helps you dissolve the shame and the ancestral patterns. Hey, hey, hey. And that negative hatred or fear that's ingrained in your emotional body, this helps support dissolving that. So it's a really good stone if you're working on the shoulda, woulda, couldas. I highly recommend. It's a lot easier to find than a strophalite and eudialyte. We've got black obsidian, we've got gold chain obsidian, we've got snowflake obsidian, we've got peacock obsidian, we've got rainbow obsidian. This is mahogany obsidian. And it's super, super good for dissolving those ancestral patterns of shame and the hatred and the self-loathing of that results from that. Okay, mahogany obsidian. Next is black phantom quartz. So this particular specimen that I have has carbon inclusions. Some of them have manganese inclusions, which kind of helps support the heart, the emotional healing part of it. But the black carbon helps shed light on the dark areas of self and really quiets that inner judge that proclaims you are never good enough. This is a double terminated quartz, which means that the energy goes in and out from both directions. So it's super cool for me to use that on layouts for clients because when clients' bodies ask for that, it's usually wants to be connected to something else to kind of amplify it. It's super cool. Last, but not certainly least, this is called an aragonite star cluster. A lot of times you'll see these in a kind of a rusty color, like a rusty orange color. This one is more white, but you can see there's orange kind of spots on it. I just love aragonite to begin with, but the star clusters are like supercharged. They stimulate healing and integration of the past wounds and energetic blocks that keep you locked in a mindset and a belief. So when we're talking about curing yourself of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, aragonite star cluster is the bomb.com. It's a great way to support that effort to heal and integrate the lessons from all of that past stuff, right? So you don't have to continue to beat yourself up, but you can hold the lesson of it so that you don't have to experience it again. You know what you need to do in order to avoid repeating it. At least in my epic fail, I did. So that is all I have for you today. We're going to cut it off a little earlier than usual, but I feel like I've said enough about the subject matter. And if you have any questions, if you have any curiosities about what it's like to work with me, I really hope that you would go to my website at https thecrystalcoach.com and check it out and check me out. And if you have any direct questions you would like to ask me, you can DM me on Facebook, Anahata Roach, the Crystal Coach, or on Instagram, the same handle, Anahata Roach, the Crystal Coach. And all of my previous episodes and podcasts can be found on Transformation Talk Radio, as well as my own YouTube channel, The Crystal Coach, The Crystal Coach. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'll see you next time on The Crystal Coach Show. Bye for now. You have been listening to The Crystal Coach Show, helping you live every day with clarity, guidance, and practical wisdom. With me, your host, Anahata. Tune in every first and third Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time on TransformationTalkRadio.com, where we channel divine wisdom through stories of service, spirituality, and stones for self-care. Feel connected and reside in the vibration of love on The Crystal Coach Show. For more information and to become the best version of yourself, visit thecrystalcoach.com. That's thecrystalcoach.com. See you next time.